Good afternoon, everyone. The time is now 7:02. I'd like to call our meeting of the Middle Chattahoochee Regional Water and Sewer Authority to order. That being said, we'll go ahead and proceed with roll call. I'm going to ask Secretary Davis if you wouldn't mind proceeding with roll call.
Yes, the Honorable Sonia Fillingham, Chair.
Present.
The Honorable Mayor Vincent Williams.
Present.
The Honorable Vice Chair Mario Avery.
Present.
The Honorable Mayor Teresa Thomas Smith.
Present.
The Honorable Councilman Brian Jones.
Present.
The Honorable Councilman Nathan Slater.
Present.
And the Honorable City Manager Tony Bud.
Present.
Thank you so much, Secretary Davis. We have a confirmed quorum. Our next item of business is approval of the Water Authority minutes. Members, the minutes were advanced to us in our packets. Hopefully, everyone has had an opportunity to review the minutes. At this time, I'll call for a motion regarding our minutes.
Motion to approve the
Second.
minutes.
Moved, properly second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Our minutes stand as approved. Next, I'm going to ask, just as a courtesy to our guests, we have Georgia Tech here, right? Do we have Georgia Tech for a presentation?
They were, I apologize, they were not there at the end of the semester, so they would like to come back maybe in January. They would like to have a further discussion about coordinating for the January meeting.
Okay,
I apologize, I forgot to let you all know that.
okay. Next, we have some items that are listed under the discussion and approval. There was RFP referrals. I believe that is relative to Board Member Phillips providing 3 recommendations. Is that correct?
Yes, and so that was, yes, Chairwoman, that is correct. My recollection is that in a prior discussion, the board was seeking other options for accounting services. And my recollection is that we asked each city to work with their procurement teams to see if they could identify some viable options. And so that's what this recommendation came from, was that discussion. And so I don't know if there were any other recommendations that anyone proffered for that effort, but that's what led to the 3 recommendations that I forwarded.
Okay. So the recommendations were forwarded. The floor is open for any board discussion or direction regarding the recommendation.
I guess we've got 3 recommendations, is that correct?
Yes, and I don't know that, for clarity, that anyone has reached out to these organizations on behalf of the board. Again, I was simply forwarding these. I thought my recollection was that each city was going to try to offer a few suggestions, and that was just my 3 recommendations from Fairburn. With that said, if we don't have any other recommendations or any other firms that the member cities have identified as potential financial services, we can certainly begin by having someone from the authority reach out to these 3 specific firms and determine whether or not they would be interested in engaging on this issue.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I guess for clarity, we had already had discussion around that we could find no one. So if Mr. Phillips has recommended 3 individuals, what should be the process to make sure that we secure the best out of those 3? I have no problem with 3 recommendations. It was, the other cities weren't, I don't think the other cities, we couldn't find anybody.
Right, I think the last time, I think Mayor Avery had mentioned that you had some recommendation to bring forth, and so.
Yeah, this is pretty much out.
And that was it, so,
Okay. So what would be our process? 'Cause I'm fine with the recommendations, but we got to select one.
Well,
We go by this one, these 3?
wouldn't we take the time for somebody to reach out to all 3 of them and see and get their one-pagers or something, have them at least vet them before we just make a decision? We haven't done any vetting of these people to see if they even are, I know you're saying that they are already forensic auditors, correct?
No, this is for.
No, this is
to
for
replace
accounting.
post.
Oh, I apologize,
This
I
is
do see
forensic.
the accountants, I apologize.
If I were a vendor, the first question
You
I would
one?
have.
Okay.
If I were a vendor, the first question I would have is, what are you asking me to do? I think we need to determine what that is, and I don't know if we can get that from the services Post has previously provided, a list of what those monthly accounting services are, so that, because I can't bid on anything until I
without knowing
know,
what it is.
what are you seeking? What do you need? What services are you requiring? So that, I think, is a reasonable starting point. Madam Chair, if I may, Dennis, I don't know if you can provide any insight on what Post has previously done or what their scope of work was. Could we use that as a starting point?
You've got an authority with no employees. All you're doing is paying vendors and paying monthly meeting invoices. So without employees, it's a fairly simple operation to make sure the checks are, the foundation for the checks are there, for the invoices, the checks are written and distributed to the authority on a timely basis. There's not a lot more to do than that, because when it comes time to audit that, you'll need a firm like Malden and Jenkins to do the auditing. But it's a very, very simple operation, and that's the biggest reason not many folks were interested, is because there's so little to do. But I don't mean to minimize it, but that's
Right.
pretty much what the operation's about at this point.
Mr. Jones.
Mr. Jones?
Oh, I was
Board
gonna
Member
say, I
Jones.
had at least one more I could add to this
Okay,
list.
okay.
To send, if we were gonna send out any communications from the authority of interest.
Okay.
To look at the scope of work, to work for the authority, to have at least one more.
If we could draw up something with our letterhead that just says what scope we want, I can easily sit at home while I'm healing and call all four and get whatever we need from them. That's very easy, but I need to know what we're looking for, and I think that if we did it on a letterhead, or if Jessica did a scope on a letterhead, just in exactly what we want, then I can bring those back before our December meeting.
Okay, so that is, okay, Member Jones?
I'm good with that, as long as you're good with confirming that what you draw up and, or hear from Dennis, and y'all are talking, say, yep, that's basically everything, and we're cool with that. Because I think we keep saying we're gonna do X, Y, and Z, and it'll be the next meeting,
Right.
But if they link up and just have a phone conversation, you write it up, say, this is what I heard on the call, Dennis, is that correct? All right, make a phone call.
Can you and I have a phone call just to write down a scope of work and then get it to Jessica for the letterhead? And
I think that's the quickest way to do it, and get it to email, out, phone call, whatever, and get something back within the next 30 days.
I just got some information from a firm yesterday as well, so I'm gonna look back at their one pager to see if there's something that could possibly be in their scope, and if it is, I'll submit them as well.
Okay.
Okay.
So now we have 4 and a possible 5.
Going to possible.
Possible 5, and so the direction is for everyone to send the information regarding those entities to Board Member Slayton, who will confer with Attorney Davenport to get a good, I guess, performative scope
Right.
of what we're looking for
Correct.
to fulfill Member Phillips' requirement. Okay?
If I could, I'm gonna throw my procurement hat on for a minute. Are we looking for low bid or qualifications?
Qualification.
All right, 'cause that's the difference.
That's a big
Okay?
difference.
All right.
So can I ask one question?
Sure.
In the scope of work that we're talking about, whichever firm is acquired, we're gonna ask the vendor, I guess in this case, prepare for a possible, not possible, prepare for an audit, because I'm sure that if I'm them, I would ask you, what's the hourly rate for the audit, or is it just standard? I would need to know that.
I
If
I thought that there were concerns raised before about the one that's doing the accounting
Okay.
and separating the two, the accounting from the audit.
That is correct.
Okay, so
Okay.
that's, go ahead.
I would assume that Marlin and Jenkins, unless there's some other suggestion, would continue to do our annual audits until further notice. But what they are auditing is the work that this firm
It's going to do.
as our transactional accounting month over month. And so that's what Marlin and Jenkins then will
Correct.
come in to do the annual audit of. And so, and then the other thing I would just offer, just for context, is as we continue to develop the future of the authority and where this is going, we probably want to make these vendors aware that it is an evolving prospect with the authority, and that this scope of work will evolve with it. And so what it is today may not be what it is a year from now. And just make sure that that's part of the dialogue.
Okay, it seems like we have a roadmap in terms of bringing that to fruition. All right, so the next item we have is forensic audit. The floor is open.
We submitted something at the last meeting, maybe the meeting before last. I pulled out some information, and I apologize, I do not have it, I don't even have my tablet with me, where our, who's doing our forensic audit actually provided some information in theirs, and I don't have it with me now, so that I can look at it. Can I just forward that to you?
You can forward it to the authority members,
the-
but I think that we were looking for, I think, well, I'll entertain what the board directs, but I thought it was scope of work to be able to do the forensic audit. And so my understanding, what I walked away with was that, you know, each city was given the opportunity to provide that. And we have not done that yet. I think we discussed other things. We have not done that. I think it needs to be, you know, maybe considered for a revisit. Give every city the opportunity to do that.
I think, I think sometimes a retreat, and I know we talk about that, but sometimes it's better to me if we're all sitting together talking about something than we submit something, you submit. Sometimes my life is just scheduled all over the place. And it's easier for me if I'm bouncing ideas off of somebody who really knows what I'm talking about and has investment in it versus us just trying to think of something and everybody coming together. And I don't know how everybody feels about that, but maybe even creating a work session before a meeting one night so that we can just talk about it all together at once.
So for my clarity, did I understand correctly that the previous discussion was that each city would go and attempt to develop a scope and then bring that back to the board?
For review, yes. And Mayor Avery, is that, am I misunderstanding? Is that?
That's what I thought, but I'm gonna tell you that takes,
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering if we need a more focused effort.
we don't have a dedicated procurement
Yeah,
person for the authority.
Forensic auditing is a very specific skill set. It's not transactional auditing. It's not what we're asking someone to come in and do in the previous discussion. I would appreciate some guidance from someone with that skill set to give us some input on if that is what your desire is. One, maybe we need to invite someone to come and tell us, do a discussion on what is a forensic audit? What all does it include? How does it apply to something like what we're talking about? And let's take a more deliberate approach. And in that way, the board could more directly direct what needs to happen next. I think we need information is what I'm saying. And so that would seem to be a viable starting point because simply drafting some scopes of work separately seems like it's going to be a longer process. I could be wrong, but
Madam Chair?
Okay, Mayor and then Member Jones?
Yeah. I remember we had someone here to speak about what a forensic audit is. We invited them, and they shared what the process would take, what we needed to do, and what they would need to do. So I guess we're asking for a remedial process now to go back and hear or be educated on what this would entail. Someone came to speak to us several meetings ago about that process.
so I'd be happy to start with whatever that vendor provided.
But a scope is different. When you want the forensic auditor to come in, you're telling them specifically what you're wanting them to look at. You want them to look at 2017 through 2024. You want them to look at this bank account, you want them, so that's what we need to do. We need to be able to clearly define what we want. We don't want them looking for a needle in a haystack. That's gonna cost $1 gazillion that we don't have to spend. So what we need to do is clearly define what we're looking for. We said we wanted a forensic audit, but what does that mean to the body? Not what does a forensic audit do? What does that mean to this body? What do we want them to produce? What are we looking for? So that's what the scope is for. But it can't just be all over the place. It's gotta be strategic and to the point. So that's what we need help with, defining amongst ourselves, what exactly are we looking for?
So
I'm sorry, I jumped in front of you, I apologize.
But what I was going to say to that is, none of us up here are accountants, so you need a subject matter expert.
Agreed, but
That is where we run into the problem.
The only thing I was gonna say, I'm sorry, remind me of her name, Dennis? Please.
Lori Dyke is the lady that visited with you. You asked for her at the Palmetto meeting. She showed up at the first Union City meeting, and she provided the very information that you're seeking right now. And she told you what she would need to do to get that information. She wanted to sit down with each of you so you could develop your scope. The only way she could develop the scope is to ask the pointed questions that you're asking in general tonight. She would know how to process that information, put together a scope, bring it back to you, confirm that's what you wanted her to do, and then she would start with the plan of work at that point. And she broke it down into those two phases and told you she would max charge one amount for phase one, and the rest of it would be X. And it was a very reasonable dollar figure, and you didn't want to do that. So we're where we are now.
Well, I think it's not that we didn't want to do it, we wanted to do it to somebody that is impartial to everybody in the room.
that's what I recall.
And I couldn't remember her name, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate the follow-up. But the other thing that I was gonna say is that when she gave us that, there wasn't a clear direction of how we wanted to move, and that's why we were talking about the scope of work, of what all we wanted to do. And then the next conversation was, we needed to get all of our ducks in a row, all our finances in a row, if we were talking about partnering with anybody in the future in relation to water and things of that nature, where the forensic audit would help us do that. If we're engaging in a new accountant, wouldn't it be prudent to ask each one of those to do a forensic audit scope?
I think and correct me if I'm wrong, I thought the practice is to keep the two separate, but maybe they can give guidance.
I just mean the scope.
Okay,
I don't
maybe
mean
they, okay,
just
okay.
something.
Okay.
So-
Guidance is what you're saying in terms of the scope. Okay.
So, Madam Chair, a couple of things.
That's a good point.
And I agree, I think that's a good point. As it relates to Mayor Teresa's question is, what are we trying to do? For me, going back to several previous discussions we had, I recall a discussion when we were asking about all of the records for the authority going back 25 years. And my recollection is, we don't really know where those are. We know where some of them are. Dennis stated very clearly that he has legal documents, but that there had been, over that span of time, it moved from one city to another, and some were here, and maybe they were there, and there was a lack of clarity. That led me to say, we need someone to come in and try to put their arms around all of this, because I don't know what I don't know. I've not been here for 25 years, and so I think it needs to be a holistic forensic audit that may inform us about things that none of us up here know about, so that we get a firm grasp. As it relates to getting our house in order, respectfully, I would submit that we have to chew gum and walk at the same time. We need to continue to do our due diligence on trying to get a scope and a handle on what this needs to be and how it needs to unfold moving forward. But we also need to continue to seek valuable discussions and stakeholder input, and the time is now. And so we may need to do things on parallel tracks, right? As we can, because I have no idea how long a forensic audit is going to take. And what, at least for me, I don't think we're in a position to say, well, let's just kind of put things on hold until all of that works out, because we have work to do.
Yeah, do that.
I think we have, I think two things have come up. One, it seems like a few members have, and Member Slayton suggested that, and Member Jones, having someone that specialized with forensic audit or scope the financials. And I don't think it's a bad decision to at least explore that opportunity with the accountant, you know, in terms of scope of work needed. Now, the other thing that I was going to say is that in terms of the documentation, I know that you mentioned that. I do recall that the project team sent a host of the documentations electronically a while back. It was a sea of the files for the authority. And that was sent to us, and we all had the opportunity to review those files, but we do have those documents electronically. Am I correct?
Starting from when they started when they came on board, though.
Yeah,
didn't
but
start
there
prior
wasn't
to
anything.
That wasn't the
before
entire span of
Yeah.
Okay,
authority.
Okay.
But help me out if I got that incorrect.
then Member Jones next.
We provided two things. One, you got a share file. That was a link. That was everything that we were talking about at the retreat. That was all of that information. When Jessica became clerk, we also provided her a share file as well as flash drives of just about everything that we had. So now, obviously, like the financial stuff, we weren't copied on all of that, so we weren't able to provide that. But all your permit documents, previous correspondence, things like that were provided, so that way they should have been in the record.
Thank you for that clarification. Member Jones.
I'm just trying to get clarity on when we talk about the time period. It seems like there's some that want to go back to the inception of the authority as far as the forensic, but I'm not sure you need to go back 25 years. Is that what we're saying? We need to go back 25 years? I can tell you that as long as I've been up here, I think Dan Post has been doing the books. So that's at least 18. So I'm thinking we need to narrow the time period down to when you have the documents.
Not just the time period, but also what exactly are we looking for?
Correct, but I think you got to start with the time period first. How far back are we looking to before we start looking for the documents? You can't look for the documents and don't know what the time period is. I think it's time and documents. So if we say we need to go back to 2010 forward, then that gives you a starting point of where you need to start looking document-wise.
But if you're, I get it, and I understand the cost factor to it, but if I'm looking to partner with somebody for, let's say, $25 million to be part of the water solution, I want to know every in and out
Exactly.
of everything, because I'm not putting my money in without knowing from the beginning to the end of all 25 years of stuff that I don't know. And you don't know what you don't know. So yeah.
So it seems like the starting point would be working with the accountant to get some, because either way, it would have to be crafted, correct?
Right.
So can we start there? Is the board amenable to that? Once an accountant is selected, which seems like we're getting pretty close to that, we can get some guidance in terms of the specialty and specialized knowledge involved in forensic audits.
So the accountant, though, we're looking at, is going to act as a financial advisor. Am I correct? Because that's what it used to say with Dan Post's name on it, on the agenda. So are we looking for a financial advisor
Manager.
versus just an accountant?
We have a financial advisor, manager.
Financial manager?
Yeah.
Okay. So again, is that what this accountant is coming in to do, is to be the financial manager?
And provide this.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Yes, that's what I would say, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so we have direction there.
I'm sorry, can I recap?
Sure.
Yeah,
Hold up.
that's good.
All right, so these three, Councilmember Jones is going to send me his. The rest of, Mayor Teresa probably has one other one that I'll have that will complete 5 that I'm contacting to, once Dennis and I get the scope of work, I'll contact these people. We're gonna look at the scope of work, try to get a 1-page thing from each one, get a quote for money-wise, but also try to see if they have a scope for a forensic audit, and that's it.
Yes, but I just had a thought, if I could, Madam Chair. Dennis mentioned the previous presentation that we had, and we had a firm, and for transparency, and I think I shared this at the time, that same firm had done a forensic audit for Fairburn before. And so I have absolutely no qualms with that firm. They did good work for us. Dennis, if I understood, or if my memory serves correct, or if I understood what you just said, they offered 2 different quotes. One was a finite price to help develop the scope, which involved the level of engagement you just talked about. And then a separate price for doing the actual audit itself. Did I understand that correctly?
I described that process at the Palmetto meeting before Ms. Dyke visited with us at the Union City meeting. And one of the questions that was asked before I invited her to come to the meeting was, well, let's have her prepare the scope. We'll use that to hire somebody else. And I said, no, she's giving you a cut rate on the first phase to do the work on the second phase. So if you brought her on board, she was going to prepare the scope with you and then perform the work product after that. So if you're asking if she's interested to do it in a bifurcated way where she just does the scope, I never asked her that question. But if she knows that's all she's doing, I would think the number's going to be higher than what she offered initially because it was for a two-step process.
Understood. I think it may be worth it to ask the question, and the reason I say that is, the only reason we didn't move forward was because Mayor Teresa had a concern that because this firm had previously worked on behalf of Fairburn, and I believe someone else, that she thought it would be better to have a firm to do the actual forensic audit that had not worked for any of the other cities. And so with that point being the point of concern, if she is willing to say, okay, well, I'll give you a true price to just do the scope, whatever that may be, and I understand that she gave us a discounted rate previously, but I would suggest we just ask her, can you just do the scope? Because that solves the subject matter expertise, that gets us a quick scope of work from a qualified vendor,
Yes.
and we move forward, if it's a price that the board is amenable to.
But keep in mind, that restriction wasn't just for doing the work, it was also for doing the scope.
So you-
There was no desire to have anybody with any relationship with any city to do any part of this. That was the message that I received, and that's why Ms. Dyke left and didn't come back, so.
Well, Mayor Teresa, would you
So-
have a concern with her doing the scope?
Not with the scope. I would have, my concern was more with the audit itself, not the scope. So a scope is a general document, a general, something that we can all agree on. So I just, if she could do the scope, that would be ideal.
Well, I can
We need to
appreciate-
ask if, do we need to ask, do we need to see if if you have a problem with the scope or the scope and the work, the execution of the work? I just put it on the table because we're asking that now. Scope or scope and work? I don't have a problem with the scope and work, because they are auditors, but, I'll yield to the pleasure of the body. So if it's just scope, that's fine, but we need to make a decision.
Again, me personally, the lady did work for Fairburn, so clearly I don't have a problem with the work or the scope. I mean, but I'm a bit, that would probably be viewed as being biased. So, but that's just me. Again, our rating is a reflection of quality work in that category, so.
That's a dumb question potentially, and I know I brought this up, so don't yell at me, but we have been going through a forensic audit.
Okay.
We have engaged in people that are really good at it, and we've been back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and so for us, we already have a scope. And if we're going to do that, I don't understand why we all wouldn't all look at ours from Rosales free that we could provide instead of paying for another one. And if we're only concerned with not utilizing somebody to do the audit that nobody up here or in the room has a relationship with, but if we're just looking for the scope of a forensic audit, we already have one.
Absolutely.
I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, bring it to the next meeting. Or email it all to us next week.
Well, we had a conversation about that as well.
We
That's
did.
why I said don't yell at me, because I got yelled at last
We
time.
did.
It was certainly because, Mayor Teresa had an issue with somebody you did there, so you don't want to do it.
Okay.
So to be
Okay.
fair, that's why Rosales was not.
Well, they had to remain independent as well. That was part of, I believe, part of theirs is independence because they're doing our forensic. I don't think it would be wise to
And it
have them
wouldn't be.
doing this.
But a scope is just a scope.
The scope is the scope.
Nobody's
That's
doing
different.
anything else except for, we're just providing the scope that we have for the forensic audit, so we can make a decision going forward.
So if we're back to the issue of neutrality, if we're back to the issue of neutrality and not having any connections to any of the cities, so one side I'm hearing this, the other side I'm hearing this, it seemed as though we were all in a good place, that once we secure the accountant, we could work with the the financial manager, work with the financial manager to get a good scope. We're, You know, it's someone that was, would be recommended, that would be approved by the body, and we can utilize them since they have the specialized expertise, and then we don't get into, this one did this for this city, or this one did this for this city. Is everybody amenable for that? And if so, is there a motion so that we can solidify it?
Motion to what you just said.
I was trying to figure out how to formulate it.
Okay,
Second.
We noodling right
okay,
now.
yes. Motion is,
With a friendly amendment,
okay.
that we put a timeline on getting this financial manager, so that we're not talking about this 4 months from now.
Right.
So
So whatever the board,
there's a motion and a is there a second? There was a second,
Second.
and now discussion.
just a friendly amendment, I'm fine with the motion. I just think we should put a timeline on it, of when we intend to hire a financial manager, so that we can then continue progress.
So other discussion, is there anybody up here who has a, stop making, has a neutrality issue if we submit the scope that we already have for review?
So we just said that we were
We
gonna
gotta
have.
let the financial,
Let the financial manager do that.
But they not here yet.
well, let me say also too
It's
that,
neutral, and we don't get into that
Yes.
discussion again. Let's
Okay.
try to make
All
a
right.
decision that everyone can live with and be okay with.
let me ask this, would we be amenable to hiring through an agency? Because that's what the city has been doing. Don't find it, don't, okay.
To me, we muddy in the waters again.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
getting that.
Keep it simple.
Okay.
We had it
Okay.
simple.
I got you.
I think we have
January.
5 firms, if I heard our previous discussion, that are
Yes.
potential hires. We'll go through the process of contacting those firms, letting them know what, I think you volunteered to work with Dennis, contact those firms. And all I'm asking, as a friendly amendment to the chairwoman's motion, is that we just put a timeline on it. That's all. I didn't want to change the motion. I like the motion.
Dennis,
But the motion is a different topic.
Right.
The motion is for the person you select as financial manager to develop a scope for a forensic audit. I think you should let Nathan come back with the work product in December, and then you look at setting a deadline to bringing on a financial manager on board. What we're talking about with the underlying motion is having that person, whoever it is you select, to also develop a scope for the forensic audit. Putting that deadline on that motion doesn't do anything. We need to go ahead and get the work product here first. That's when you'd make a motion in December to put a deadline on hiring the financial manager.
I'm amenable to that.
That's my suggestion.
okay.
I'm amenable to that.
So, motion second, any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you, we have a game plan.
Right.
All right, next we have revenue. I don't,
Revenue
revenue.
and finance.
Did we make it?
We have that on the agenda. Councilmember Jones?
What was your topic?
That's what he's saying?
I don't have the revenue.
Okay.
Okay, all right, we can proceed.
Okay.
Next, we'll have our reports. We'll ask Attorney
I know what
Davenport.
you're talking about. Was that in reference to the idea with Atlanta that Tom brought forward the last time?
You say you wanted to bring that back on the agenda?
Right, that was the conversation we had with Tom's idea with Atlanta and being able to see if we could get that agreement with starting somewhere with the pipes and you work your way. We started getting revenue in, but it's not, yeah, that was the conversation last meeting. And the conversation was, let's entertain that again. I don't know if you were briefed on that.
He was not.
Can we have
You
Tom?
okay next meeting?
I'm fine, I'm fine.
He'll get with you.
He's trying to get with you, so you'll be prepared next meeting. Next, we'll have the report from Attorney Davenport.
Madam Chair, I have no report for the attorney, but I do for the financial manager.
Okay,
Requisition number 283 is before you in the amount of $9,708.58 for your consideration.
that would be requisition number 283.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve, is there a
Second.
second? Properly second. Any discussion?
No, he was at us texting it.
Okay. Hearing no discussion, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, requisition stands as approved.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's all I have.
Thank you. Next, we have the report from our project managers.
Manager.
Evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Hello there.
Hold on, I just lost my little papers. There we go. All right, we wanted to go ahead, obviously, I wasn't here the last meeting, but the board gave everybody direction, or gave Andrea and I the direction to meet with Hamilton Homes and Sustainability Partners, so I wanted to give you an update on that. We were able to schedule a conference call. We have a follow-up scheduled with them tomorrow. We met with Hamilton as well as two gentlemen from Sustainability Partners, Eric Street and Jason Hewitt. They asked for a little bit of background information, so Andrea and I gave the presentation that we have on several occasions to each of your respective city councils about kind of the history of the project, the assets of the authority, and kind of where we stand as far as having permits and approved documents through EPD, things of that nature, to kind of give them a broad, as well as then be able to answer more specific questions that came from those presentations. Typically, what they like to do is work starting with water meters as a starting point. So what they usually said is what they typically like to do is they'll contract, and in this case, because you each have your own respective systems, they would contract with the respective cities to install and maintain your water meters. They put in all the infrastructure, and then each city pays them a certain amount. They feel that in the past, or how it was represented to us, is that helps them. It helps you starting to get more revenue because you're having water meters replaced that are becoming more accurate, everything of that nature. And then from that point, they would look at moving on to the larger. They were not dismayed at all by the $160 million price tag of the overall project. But obviously, they would want to have further discussions with each respective city about just the financial feasibility of entering into this type of agreement. There was a little bit of concern about missing audits. However, they were saying that they could potentially have workarounds to that, but just something where they felt like if they were putting significant infrastructure in the ground, there would be some sort of payment for that. They did say that right now, the cost of capital would be similar to what the bond markets are, with the caveat that there would be a few more basis points based on the assignment of the risk shift, obviously, to them. What those specific numbers are or how that would work were not discussed. Tom's going to be joining us on a call tomorrow to kind of further vet that out. And then the idea was if we had those further discussions, then they would possibly come in December and speak to you as a board, be able to talk about more of it on how it is. It was a great positive conversation. They obviously have had a lot of success in other cities such as Shreveport, Louisiana and Jackson, Mississippi, and they're able to start building these bases. So they, talked about hiring third-party contractors that could contract through Sustainability Partners or the authority, and they also wanted to make sure that everybody knew they don't assign margins of goods, services, design, maintenance, et cetera, like that. So it was a great first conversation, but there's a little bit more to develop as far as like the nuts and bolts, and then they would come in December once we were able to address those concerns or those questions that they had. So that was that. That was the main thing that we did.
I'm sorry, I was trying to, and I apologize, I was trying to digest. You repeat that portion about the margins that you just talked about?
What they were saying is they don't, like for any infrastructure, a lot of times contractors, they say, if we're gonna put something in, we're gonna give it, we're gonna add additional cost to it. They were saying
Okay.
essentially the cost is what the cost is. They don't add additional. But there is, when you take the overall number as far as what they're gonna charge each city on a month-to-month basis, there are gonna be some additional points or costs just because they're assuming the risk. So you guys don't pay for any of the necessary repairs to the infrastructure they put on, but there is a contract on a month-to-month basis or for longer on what that looks like.
Professional service fee.
And if you recall, for some of you that haven't done, we have looked at P3 public partnerships in the past. We did so on a number of occasions with the reservoir as well as with the direct withdrawal option. And a lot of times the numbers that came back were a little bit cost prohibitive or they weren't palatable to this authority. So full disclosure, we have not had any of those conversations as to what that additional basis points would be with Sustainability Partners. They've been very open, they've been very enthusiastic, and so at this point, I'm not gonna speculate what that would be, but obviously, other municipalities are working really well and having success. So I think that just comes all, like usual, it comes down with the numbers, right? and whether it makes sense to this board and how it would be structured, just because each of you would be involved in your own contracts, kind of as the starting point. And then when we're looking at the larger project, that would be more of an authority project. So,
Thank you. Any additional questions?
Did you all talk about timelines at all? What any of this might look like for them to come on board to do anything?
we've talked to them about coming in December to come and have a presentation, because this board has been very clear that we do the vetting and say, okay, does this make sense? Have some of the project team talk about it from a legal as well as a financial perspective. And then they would have the opportunity to come here, answer your questions, and then talk about what their timing looked like. For us, it was, here's the general overall what we're looking for. Here's the authorities project. Here's more of the respective needs of the cities. And then they would come and answer those questions, and you guys could talk about what it looks like. But what we've always found is if the dollars are a little bit cost prohibitive, usually then it doesn't work. So we were still trying to work those out before.
So to the presentation in December, I would very much like to have them come in and present directly to the board. And if they are amenable to doing so, based on the positive start to those conversations, maybe prepare a basic presentation that we could get as part of our agenda packet to review, so that we can ask informed questions based on what they do and what they provide, and really have a good engagement with them that hopefully would inform how they may be wanting to move forward and how the board may develop a consensus about how to move forward.
So we would
Kind
need
of a
that at
work
least
session,
one
if you will,
week
for
in
lack of a
advance?
better way of
That's okay?
describing that.
Okay.
I'd also like to say that when we talk about cost prohibitive, the longer we talk about it being cost prohibitive, the more cost prohibitive it's probably gonna be, because things just keep, the price of
Yes,
things
ma'am.
just keeps rising. So I hope when we get what we get, it's very concise, and we can really, going back to what Tony said, just make some good questions so that we can move faster, so that we're not delaying everything that we're working on.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so there was a request that they attend the next meeting in December. Is the board, is the body amenable to that?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
That's what we had generally talked about, and we said we'd come before this board and just confirm that you would like to see them in person.
Correct.
So I'll report to them tomorrow on the call that you would like to see them in fact in person, and if they could give a presentation or at least some type of talking points to, for this board to be able to have conversations and a little bit more of a substantive conversation.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Only other thing that we have is obviously, we met with Atlanta several months ago. We had not been pursuing. We had been letting them kind of marinate as it goes through the elections. Now that they have the new city council and Mayor Dickens was reelected, we could reach out to them again if it's a pleasure of the board just to do a status check. Or we can continue to wait until you meet with sustainability partners and everything else and look at these other options as well.
I'd rather look at the other options first. That's just me.
That's why I asked. What's the pleasure of the
I
board?
appreciate the question.
I think there also has to be some respect for the shift that's gonna happen on this board in January. We've got the mayor-elect sitting in the back, just making sure that as she's listening, that since she'll be taking over in January, that she's able to be a part of the discussions when we start making decisions as well, so.
Well, then I will continue to just sit and we'll wait for Atlanta to reach back out to us.
I agree.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very
All right,
much.
thank you so much. Next, we have other business. I do want to take a moment to, in your, today, you should have received an email of the draft audit from Malden and Jenkins that will, is for ending December 2024. And so that's in your packet, and hopefully everyone can review that. I was not made aware of any findings or anything like that, but I did submit it to Madam Secretary, who shared it today, so hopefully everyone will have an opportunity to review that. And then we can be prepared to respond in tandem at the December meeting. Okay? Is that good?
I've got,
All right.
are you finished?
Yes.
I had one question I wanted this for clarification. Am I correct, in January 26th, the third seat, as Fairburn acquires the third seat on this board? Is that correct?
That is
I
correct.
just want to make sure that, in this case with the mayor-elect sitting here, because that's a decision, that's something that she's going to have to address.
This board addressed that back in probably June.
Okay,
Or
just-
June of this year.
Yes, sir.
And if I recall, the vote was to rotate the third seat, and the next city would be Fairburn, and then Palmetto, and then back to Union City. That's what the discussion was, and keep it in mind, that third seat is for a 2-year term,
It's for what now?
a 2-year term.
2-year term. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Gotcha, thank you.
Thank you.
That's all I had.
Any other business?
Yes, ma'am. I wanted to have a discussion. I'm listening to us go back and forth, with noodling. But I do want to talk about something very sensitive, and please hear me out. You know, September the 9th, there was a discussion had concerning the frequency of meetings. Since the meeting in Palmetto earlier in the year, where the authority voted to halt the water project, or pause it, and even seemed to want to vote to dissolve the authority has moved forward to take care of its business and to meet its obligations. And to be clear, at that meeting in Palmetto, there was some discussion over dissolving the authority at that time. I mentioned the comments about possible dissolution because there seemed to be a sentiment that there was nothing more for the authority to do. And we're still weaving back and forth, trying to figure out where we're going, what are we gonna do, who's gonna do this, what, you know. However, we were reminded that we have outstanding obligations, which we know we have, to our vendors and bond holders. So we are continuing to meet those obligations. So back to the September 9th, 2025 meeting, it seemed clear to me and to the majority of those present that quarterly meetings would be appropriate, given that a call meeting could occur as needed in the interim. I now understand that the vote to meet quarterly in September was addressed at the October meeting, and that's fine. We have reverted back to monthly meetings, and I understand the motivation for this change was due to a perceived volume of work that needs to be accomplished. Certainly there's work that needs to be accomplished. But I don't see it. We talk about the need for cities to cooperate to move the project forward. However, there is not even sufficient political will to reaffirm the commitment of the cities to move forward through the adoption of a resolution to that effect. Recognizing the need for cooperation, and that's key, cooperation and collaboration, it is not the same as putting it into practice. For example, we know that we have some fiscal challenges that will hamper our ability to get additional funding. We understand that there is no definitive time frame that the fiscal challenges will be overcome. No money, no project. Let's talk about money and cooperation. We all signed up to pay our fair share to this authority. We defined our fair share as being tied to water usage. Consequently, Union City has shouldered the lion's share of expenses, and that was agreed upon. We have no issue paying for what we are using. In the 12-month period from 11/1/23 to 10/31/24, Union City paid $2,129,455. Providing context, Fairburn in that same period paid $1,026,457. Palmetto paid $203,220.95. Percentage-wise, Union City is at 63.4%. Fairburn is at 30.6%. Palmetto is at 6%. However, the most recent 12-month period, 11/1/24 to 10/31/25, yields the following. Union City has paid $2,203,907. Fairburn, $1,050,707. Palmetto, $84,280. Percentages, Union City 66.0%, Fairburn 31.5%, and Palmetto 2.5%. Union City understood at the beginning that it needed to cooperate and pay the lion's share, but the records I have received show me that Palmetto has paid nothing toward this authority since January 2025. If we're going to speak cooperation, we need to act cooperation. I have reviewed the information in our packet this evening and noticed that we currently have $19.7 million in outstanding bond debt. So I am proposing that we value our assets, pay down or pay off our bonds, and wrap up the business of the authority. Because it is evident that we don't have total buy-in to this any longer. We are noodling and doodling all around the place. And if Palmetto is not going to be a good partner, or Palmetto has challenges, we need to deal with what we need to deal with. And I think the assets that we have in place will not only take care of the bond debt, but it relieves each city from continually paying into an authority that probably don't need to continue to move forward with. So that is my proposal this evening. I have numbers if anyone wants to see them, but it is quite troubling to hear the back and forth, especially when we're still struggling with making sure all of the cities have audits, because we had an issue when we were trying to secure support from a federal perspective. Couldn't get that support because the audits weren't done by one of our cities. So, you know, I mean, the numbers speak to themselves. You know, Union City has overpaid a couple of times, so has Fairburn. We have kept this authority solvent. And it is time for us to do what we need to do individually for our own cities, but this is not working, folks. So that's my proposal, and that's what I have, Madam Chair.
May I please? Leah? Sure, are you, sure, go ahead.
I think it's a little bit, to use the words that Palmetto is not being a good partner is disingenuous. Now, if we haven't paid since January, it's only because I don't know that we haven't paid since January, because I don't know how to pay this authority. It was set up by someone who probably no longer even works at the city. So if that fell through the cracks, I would think that this authority would have said something to the city of Palmetto to say, hey, we haven't received your payment. That's a courtesy, I would think. I don't think that anyone would believe that it is the intention of Palmetto not to pay its part of the
Never said it was the
authority.
intention.
It was just the implication, sir. So if you be so
The
kind,
notices go
if you
out.
would be so kind to allow me to finish speaking, sir. Additionally, Palmetto has not completed an audit since 2021. I became the mayor in 2024. We're still trying to complete 2022. So if this authority was not receiving from the city of Palmetto, if it wasn't receiving their audits, that is something that I inherited. If the authority didn't go against with the last administration to make sure that they were getting everything they needed, then it's just incumbent upon this administration to get it done. And we're still working to create things and get our audits done for our city. So again, this is not something that started with this administration. It started prior to me, but no one ever checked the prior administration, so it went unresolved. We are doing our part to get our city's financial house in order for the simple fact that we need our city in order. Has nothing to do with the authority. But to say it as if Palmetto is being an unfriendly partner or not being a good partner, I just think that's a little bit unfair in your statement. But that is, again, my opinion. So I appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And
Madam Chair, if I may.
Chair, I appreciate that. This has nothing to do with this current administration of Palmetto. Certainly, it was brought up with the previous administration about the lack of responsibility for audits. Certainly, you can go back and check, because I brought it up to the previous mayor. But again, I propose that we value our assets, pay down or pay off our bond debt. Because none of these cities, we don't know where things are gonna go in the next the next year, with things that are shifting and changing, we need to get from up under this debt.
Okay.
Madam
So
Chair.
that, I understand we have some discussion, so that's a recommendation. Were you making a motion on that?
I make a motion.
I'm not prepared to
Yeah.
vote on that tonight.
Yeah, and I would
I'm
like
not
to
prepared for
add
that.
something to the discussion before we move forward.
So the motion was made. Is there a second?
To do what?
The,
To value our assets, pay down or pay off the bonds, and wrap up the business of the authority.
I was gonna say that, I'll second it for discussion.
okay, second, and then discussion.
The genesis of this authority over 2 decades ago was because it was apparent at that time that there needed to be an independent 50-year water source for the cities in the southern crescent of Fulton County. That need is more prevalent today than it was 25 years ago. I recognize that the history of the authority may be fraught with some challenges, but the vital resource that water is, and is needed by every resident in all 3 of our cities, I believe requires that we take a step back, look at why this authority has not progressed. That's why I think a forensic audit is helpful, and determine what the future looks like. And I, for one, just my sole opinion, thinks it looks very different than the previous 25 years. I have no intention, or would I ever suggest that we simply continue doing what has been happening for the last several years. In my comments at the last meeting when we talked about the frequency of the meetings, I stressed that this authority must do something significantly different. I think it may need to reconstitute as something different. There are assets, including the permit from the Chattachoochee withdrawal and other things that I know from valued conversations with regional stakeholders that people are ready to come to the table and discuss. We have got to avail ourselves of resources beyond this board, and as much as I respect and value the work that Andrea, Loya, Dennis, and Tom have done, there are a lot of other conversations that need to be had. Because I know from conversations with stakeholders regionally that there are significant players hoping and wanting that to happen. So that some new iteration of this, whether that means bringing in other cities, other stakeholders, Atlanta has major water issues. We've talked about that before. I believe they would want a solution for water for these 3 cities down here. Does it look like what it's looked like previously? I don't think it does. But dissolving this does nothing to resolve the issue that started, and we're still left with trying to determine what a 50-year water source looks like. Now, we can all just decide we're gonna go it on our own. I think these issues are better solved regionally, even beyond our 3 cities, and that's a lot of the feedback I've gotten from the conversations that we've had in Fairburn. So by no means would I suggest that we simply continue business as usual. I think business needs to change radically. But I am concerned that we not allow the challenges of the past to dim any future prospects that we've not yet considered.
Member Phillips, Member Slayton, and then Member Jones. I think you had your hands up for discussion.
I would back up everything Tony just said. I have no desire to disband or wrap things up in a sense because it doesn't help us. I understand that some cities have backups and that helps them. But even as Coweta's our backup for Palmetto is gonna run extremely thin because Coweta and Union just keep building. They don't have enough as it is. And with that, Palmetto's screwed. Now, I don't know about the bill. I don't pay checks. I don't write checks. I can sign it if somebody prints it up though. But I don't know where the notices go. I know several things went to an old email that we have found out. So I would ask, understanding that we're in November 2025, and Palmetto hasn't paid something. It is obviously because we didn't know we had anything to pay. I don't think anybody up here nor in the audience has any intentions of not paying our fair share, since it always has been done that way. And before we leave tonight, I would like to know where the notification went. If you can print me up a notification or send it to by text or to the mayor, I'm sure we can resolve it in the next week. But I also think that that could have been cleared up by a phone call. And I'm not gonna say common courtesy, but just courtesy, because it's, just knowing the past, I just think that's the way you do things. We're three small cities, we may all be different sizes, but we're all supposed to have each other's back as well. And that's how the history of our cities have been, so I would hope we continue that way. But disbanding or wrapping it up, I have no wants of that. I just think that we're in a rock and a hard place, and I think that we can get help to get out and partner with the right people. Hopefully, our staff will do that for us, and we can make the right decisions moving forward. But I also agree that we need radical change. I have no problem meeting once every quarter. The truth of the matter is I may not even be here in January. So if I'm not, we need water. We're always gonna need water. And nothing that we're doing, nothing that's set in the next 5, 15, 20 years is gonna get us water unless we succeed here. And I would like for us to succeed here.
Thank you, Member Slayton. Member Jones?
And me.
Thank you.
Okay,
And then I'm done coming after that.
okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will
Okay.
say that when we first brought this up, I guess that was the August, September meeting about pausing the project. I was really totally against it, but I guess when you've done this for a while, you're a little biased and want to see it through. But if you're looking at it with clear eyes and stepping back into what I said at the last meeting, if we don't have $160 million to build it, what are we doing? And it sounds like there's partners out there, but the partners haven't been here with a check. If we don't have a check, we can't do anything. All the progress we made over 25 years to get to a plan, without a check, this project is going nowhere. So we either stop now, that's why we talked about moving to quarterly. We don't have a plan. We have a project, we have no plan. We have no money to implement the project or the plan. Let me say that again, say that differently. We got the plan, we don't have no money. And I don't think anybody up here has a black card to swipe for this project to start tomorrow. So that, if we don't have the money, we need to look at what we're gonna do. No money, no project. You see housing projects go up in our city, when they run out of money, the project stops and they go somewhere else, and that project sits and the earth takes it back over.
Thank you, Member Jones.
Yes, ma'am. First of all, Dennis, how many years left on the existing agreement?
The 50-year agreement was entered into in 2003, so that would be 28 years by my count left on the existing IGA.
Oh, okay. The other thing too, and, I won't, and Mayor, I just have to speak very candidly. I'm a little surprised, Mayor, that you didn't have a conversation with Mayor Teresa about this offline. It's just unwritten rules among mayors that things that just don't happen. I'm sorry. It's disrespectful, and I'm gonna say it openly. In my mind, it's disrespectful. This should have been had before then. Are you accurate about what you're talking about? Yes, sir, you are. I can't even question it. And again, I'm not trying to get in your business or pay a matter, but there are unwritten rules that mayors have, and there's certain things that we just don't do. And I'm gonna leave it at that. But my question would be, as it relates to the information of your proposal, I have my position would be I would have to have a conversation with my city council. I'm a firm believer that having a unified front with our city council as it relates to what we will or won't do, despite what's agreed by this board. So again, I'm totally sensitive. I've looked at the output as it relates to Union City. I thought it was like up to 67% one time, and so. But again, there's just certain conversations you have, man, behind the scene. I'm sorry, I just can't get past that point.
Okay. Mayor Williams?
Yeah, and thank you for that, and it is not my responsibility to notify either city. Fairburn paid, Fairburn knew when to pay, Union City knew when to pay. So, I mean, if there is some snag in notification of what the other city has to pay, that's not my responsibility.
I concur.
You know, so certainly, it wasn't out of disrespect, it was out of honesty, you know, because Fairburn paid and sometimes Fairburn overpaid, Union City paid and sometimes Union City overpaid. And with that, both cities kept this authority solvent. You know, now, I am not saying shut down the authority. I'm saying let's pull together the assets, pay off the bond debt. That's the least we can do, which takes the burden from every city from paying that bond debt. You know, it's a struggle for all of our cities. You know, so I'm thinking if we move forward with that, the authority will still be in existence, but it gives us time, but also freedom to be able to work with someone who wants to work with us. I keep hearing there are so many other folks who want to come to the table. We heard that months ago. Where are they? You know, I met with Atlanta. We're still awaiting, you know, I know everybody was waiting for the elections to be over, so now we'll see where Atlanta is and any other possible opportunities. But this debt has got to be paid.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Proceed. Proceed.
Thank you. The $160 million has been the elephant in the room ever since that figure came out. I can tell you from conversations with stakeholders that I have had, though it may seem insurmountable for the people sitting on this dais, it is not. In fact, earlier, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't you say in your conversation with those two organizations that they didn't see that as being a wow figure that, oh, that's just insurmountable, we can't do that?
No, they were perfectly fine with that number, and all the stakeholders that we met with as far as potential partners with Coweta Water and Sewer, Douglas, all of the adjacent ones, everyone was saying they were open to further conversations. Right now, they were tackling their own reservoir expansions or intakes, and so they said right now they weren't ready to move forward, but they were always open for the conversation. As far as the overall project cost, everybody had said, that's fine. Nobody looked at the number as being atrocious or being huge, given the fact that their own projects were usually $200 to $300 million.
And I will tell you, I know there was a project, I believe in Birmingham, and in a recent conversation with another city, when that figure came up, and I may have shared this in a previous meeting, the response I got was, is that all? We have to open our minds up to different conversations. I don't believe that $160 million is drop dead. We just can't get this done. Mayor, I respect your point about debt. I'm not comfortable with debt either. And I would at least suggest we need to have a continuing conversation over the next meeting or two about how best to approach that. I firmly believe this authority needs to exist and may need to expand it, as I mentioned earlier, reconstitute to include other financial stakeholders, other cities that might want to look at this and go, okay, well, let's talk about what this could be. That permit from the EPD has a value.
And that's ours.
That other
That's
people-
the authorities, yes.
And that's the authorities.
value
And I
we
could,
have.
and I think we all know this.
Without the debt, that gives us a better chance. Without the
I
debt.
don't disagree, Mayor, and I think we need to continue to discuss that and what the future needs to look like. I firmly believe, as I mentioned earlier, it shouldn't look like the past. It needs to be something different. But that work is incumbent upon us. I think the board has to lean forward in a different way. And what I mean by that is, and I can speak for Fairburn. So we have a staff, we have a city administrator. When our elected leaders say we want to look into an issue, they charge us with doing due diligence. We go out, we do the legwork, we get the figures, we do that, and we come back and we offer a recommendation to our elected leaders. They then discuss, give us further direction, and we keep working that process.
Same here.
That works well in the city. I don't think that works for this water authority. I think the people sitting on this dais have to get more personally involved in bringing, and let me qualify that. I think I said this at the last meeting. I know nobody here has extra time. I get that. Everyone sitting on this dais is a responsible, busy leader. I get that. but I don't think that model works for the water authority. I think next time there's a conversation with Atlanta, these board members need to be in that conversation. I think these board members need to bring folks to the next meeting or subsequent meetings to come and engage with us. Every time we meet, by and large, it's the same people in the room. And that's not, I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I think our consultants do tremendous work. We don't talk to anybody that's not in this room right now. And so that, I think, needs to fundamentally change our approach. Resolving the debt, I'd like to have a continuing conversation. I'm not prepared to try to make that decision tonight.
Absolutely not.
I think it's a valid point. I would like to continue that conversation because it may impact what our future could be, but we need water more today than we did when this authority was founded. And responsible leadership means you work through the challenges, you work through the debt, you work through all those other things and provide our citizens a viable solution. That's what I think the responsibility is.
So I wanted to make sure I'll let you finish, Member Phillips. I do want to make a clarification. The $160 million is just for the construction piece. That's not including the amount of unknown costs to tap into the system. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So every system, every city has to move beyond the 160. And I want to make sure that we qualify that so that everybody has a good basis of understanding, because we say 160, that's just construction. It's going to take millions for each city to tap onto the system. So I wanted to say that.
Agreed.
And then I also wanted to, because I heard you mention Atlanta, and that was the whole point, was to come back and update the authority so that the authority can, work collaboratively. That was what Mr. Owens said. But also, I want to make sure that we have this, Fairburn, I understand, was working with Fayette County.
Yep.
Correct?
Palmetto, I understand, was working with Coweta. Okay? So we all were exploring. When we went to Atlanta, it was on behalf of all three.
The authority.
This is where we are. Can you work with the authority? Can you bring, can we work together collaboratively in terms of partnership? And so each entity has been explored. I just want to make sure it doesn't look as though Union City just went to Atlanta, because I've heard that a couple of times, and I want to make sure that I address that tonight. Fairburn went to Fayette County because you were exploring, and rightly so, I understand that. Palmetto, rightly so, I understand that.
We already buy water from
You know.
we were, okay.
I remember a meeting where you said, in full disclosure,
Yeah.
I want to make sure, if you said that, I remember that.
Right.
And so I want to make sure, because it is collaboration and partnership is everything. It really is in everything when you're dealing with this. But I did want to clarify that. It's not just 160 in isolation. It's 160 plus the capacity and the wherewithal to make those connections on top of it.
I think that.
And with the bond debt that takes a licking and keeps on ticking. Member Jones, and then I'll come back to you.
I think the other thing that needs to be stated is when we first saw that figure, we talked about what the per thousand rate would be for the residents, and it was a number that we could not pass on. If I remember correctly, it was somewhere close to 10, 11, maybe even 12 per thousand. And I think we're doing something like 5, 6 now. So you're doubling. So again, like I said, I mean, if there's somebody with the money to drop on us, fine, but I don't see it.
Member Phillips?
Projects like this get done all over the country all the time. It's doable. And I'm not prepared to parse every number tonight and what this rate should be and that rate should be. There is a solution to this that is viable. It's not what we've been doing, and it may look different than what we thought it was going to look like. It may involve people who aren't in this IGA today, but I am firmly convinced, because it's been happening in other locations around the country, all around us. These types of projects, the entire country talks about the need for infrastructure and aging infrastructure. This is a national conversation. Cities like ours and others have solved this time and again. It's doable. It is doable. That's just my firm belief. It's not doable based on what we've been doing, so that means we need to do something different. But I just don't think the responsibility to provide this solution has been met. And we should redouble our efforts in new and different ways so that this vital resource can have a solution for the next 50 years.
Okay.
Madam Chair, and I don't negate any of that, you know, I mean, we still have the authority, we still have the permit, but we need to eliminate the debt. That is what I'm asking. We need to eliminate the debt. We cannot continue to be a viable partner lugging around over $20 million worth of debt and trying to secure partners to come in to do what we need to do. Certainly, water is a precious resource. We know that. And that's not going to change. It's going to grow. But the numbers speak for themselves. My proposal stands. And that's all I have to say, Madam Chair.
Okay, Member Jones, and then we'll call for a vote.
Mayor, how do we reduce the number with the assets?
The assets are probably over the amount of the debt. That eliminates the debt totally for each and every city.
You mean
You still-
sell the assets off?
Yes.
We can't sell Palmetto's.
Well,
Well,
I think,
the water treatment plant, you know, Palmetto owes for that, that's 2 million dollars. But we collect enough money to do that. I have no problem with gifting it to Palmetto.
What would be I'm sorry, go ahead.
we need a qualified financial assessment, even if we were going to do that.
That's what I just asked.
Right, and so all I'm saying is, I think at this stage, it is a worthy discussion, but it's a premature decision. We need a full vetting of all of these assets, a full vetting of all of this debt, a full vetting of all that. It would be useful to us, which is kind of why we started talking about forensic audit and getting an accounting in place, so that, I think the phrase we used previously was getting our house in order. And once that information has been provided in a qualified way, then that's an informed point in which to decide, should we resolve this debt now that we have clarity on what the assets are, clarity on what the debts are, and all of that information is now current and available. I would feel more informed to make a decision like that once that information has been provided currently.
I concur.
So was there any further discussion?
More,
Okay.
ma'am. Yeah.
Okay, there was a motion and a second. We've had discussion. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we have completed other business, and so now I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved, is second. Any discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we stand as adjourned.
Can we get a bill?